Welcome to the Hidden Bookcase. Come through and get cozy. Pick a book, your favourite book, that's the one that opens this room. Inside you'll find a warm fire, a loving cat, and a wide skylight to the stars.
And a dangerously high to-be red pile.
I'm Morgan, I use they-them pronouns, and I am suspiciously ace vibes from supposedly allosexual characters.
I'm Soren, I use he-him pronouns, and I am not a witch. I shop at Next.
We've been friends for over a decade and are always swapping books.
Each episode, we take it in turns to recommend one another a favourite read. The first-time reader tells us what they know about the book, makes some predictions about what they don't, and then we discuss our thoughts with all of you bookworms. This winter, we're reading Witches.
So today let's get to talking about...
Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. So Morgan.
Yes?
Tell us all about Her Majesty's Royal Coven. How did you find out about it?
Oh gosh, this is a good question, to be perfectly honest. It's one of those books that's bundled up in my end of third year, just getting into reading books properly again, starting at the bookshop, reading proofs on NetGalley, and I got a proof on NetGalley. I think it was one of my first proofs. So I got a proof of the audiobook on NetGalley. So I got to read it ahead of time. All I knew about it was that it was witches and it was British, and I didn't even know it was trans. So that was exciting.
Damn, surprise.
Full on surprised by the theatre reveal, which was really fun. It was a really good experience. I'm one of the OG fans for this book, you could say.
Can you tell us what this book is about?
Her Majesty's Royal Coven is about a group of 4/5 childhood best friends who are in a witches' coven together. And some of them work for the government. And there was a huge war and everything went really wrong. And now they're dealing with picking up the aftermath of their lives and possibly starting a second war. And it goes down. And there are transphobes. And it's definitely not a metaphor for current life in the UK.
Before we even get into my blind, I want to say that we were reading this basically during the election. So that was interesting.
Oh god, yeah. I literally finished it the day before I went to vote. But yes. Shall we listen to your blind?
Yes, let's. Because I don't remember anything about what I said. Her Majesty's Royal Coven. I know very little about this. It's a modern setting. It's about a governmental department that deals with magic on behalf of the government, the UK government specifically. It's a Juno Dawson book. I have only read Wonderland by Juno Dawson, which didn't leave a super strong impression on me, but I enjoyed having a trans woman protagonist in that. I'm pretty sure this one doesn't have one, but I think there is a side character who is a trans woman, so I'm excited for that. I think that it's going to have some scathing commentary about what it is actually like to be a civil servant. And I hope so, because I know many civil servants in my personal life, and I think that would be funny. As a wild prediction... It needs to be wild, though. I was going to say, I think that there's going to be an ongoing joke that all the people in the witch department of the government are gay, but that just seems obvious, doesn't it? So maybe not that. Wild prediction. I think there is going to be another governmental department that deals with, something else supernatural, maybe a vampire department or an alien department or something very, very specific. And there's going to be a rivalry between the two departments and possibly an interdepartmental romance. That's my prediction. I stand by the fact that would have been funny.
This is true.
Her Majesty's Royal Vampire. I was about to say Coven again. What do you call a group of vampires?
I don't know.
Her Majesty's Royal Flock. Everyone just hates them.
Growing up, one of my favourite book series was Department 19 by Will Hill, and that was all about an arm of the government that hunts vampires, and then they have to deal with Dracula returning, and then also Frankenstein is there, and he turns into a werewolf.
Good for him.
And it's kind of a good book series. I never finished it, but the vibes were there.
I think I was expecting more bureaucracy than was in this book.
Yeah. There's a lot of bureaucracy in book 2, if that makes you feel any better.
I can't wait. I guess because we're mainly in Neve's head and she doesn't actually work for HMRC anymore. And then, nobody works for HMRC except for Helena. And Helena runs HMRC, so it's not like she has to really, deal with paperwork.
Oh, there's not so much of that kind of bureaucracy in book 2, unfortunately.
I'm ready. I want to know what kind of forms they have to fill out. Other than that, I didn't know that the trans character would be as important as she was. For some reason, I thought that there was a character who was only incidental. Don't know where I got that impression. Maybe just because I knew that it wasn't one of the point of view characters. I was so it'll just be a background thing. but it's very much the opposite of a background thing. It's the crux of the entire narrative.
Yep. Very much a central thesis.
I feel like my reaction to it was like, I wasn't expecting it at all, so it did also completely take me by surprise that it was Theo. I started to sort of pick up on hints towards the end before it got revealed, but, you know, in general, I was like, wow, okay, this is the route we're going. But I feel like I was so... Like, I almost forgot the transphobia existed. Maybe this was because I was deliriously ill. But as soon as it got revealed that Theo was a girl, I was like, well, I guess she's not Leviathan then, so everyone can just calm down. Where's all the tension gone? And then Helena was like, no, I'm a transphobe. And I was like, I forgot about that. I was like, this is a huge relief, though, surely. Like, everything's fine.
Yep.
I was so caught up in the joy of Theo not being Leviathan that for a moment I lived in a world where transphobes didn't exist.
Society if transphobia didn't exist.
Literally.
I love this book. I really do. It's very different. Okay, this is going to make me sound really nationalistic, but I love British books. Like, I read so many books that are just, like, American, and they saturate the market so completely. And, like, they're either, even if they're second world fantasy, they have a very American tinge to them. And it's so refreshing to, A, have something written by a British author, and B, have something that is very quintessentially tied into British culture.
Yeah.
It could not be set anywhere else. It feels very rare to see these things in fiction at the moment. Maybe I'm just reading weird niches. Probably I am. But very refreshing to have it be so like that.
Yeah, I feel like this is the most British urban fantasy that I've ever read. Like, I feel like urban fantasy in particular tends to skew American. And then when you do get British urban fantasy, it's often just trying to, like, sand it down the Britishness, or, like, the Britishness is just there to be like, scones, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a quirky Britishness, whereas this is like, no, we're going to, like, commentate on the British political system and British sensibilities and even British rivalries and the way that racism functions specifically in a British setting and things like that. So I appreciated that as well. To be fair, I don't think it's necessarily a nationalistic thing so much as that it's nice to just see home represented. And obviously for us, that is the UK. Yes. Like, similarly, I just really like reading anything set where I've spent a lot of time.
I get very excited when I read books set in the Southwest now. I'm like, oh my God, that's me. Because you get lots of books that are set in London. It's quite easy to find.
Yeah, London, to be fair, is a bit of exaggerated.
This was really refreshing to be set in, like, Yorkshire, though, like Hebden Bridge and stuff, because that is, like, a fairly well-known place, but it's not anywhere I've seen books set before.
Yeah. I did also find it funny that the headquarters are in Manchester and they just won't move. They're like, no.
I condone.
This was interesting as well from the point of view of, like, I've only read one Dawson because I mentioned in my blind, but because she's a trans woman, there was a lot of world-building stuff early on that I was like, oof, this is immediately chafing me, but I know that she's going to do something with it further down the line, so I'm going to hang on. Like, the way that magic was so immediately so gendered. But I was like, hang on. She's thought about this, so it's okay.
Yeah. She's going to deconstruct it. It's all good. We're fine. I feel like they're still being deconstructed. We don't really get an answer about how it works.
No, not really, because it's just sort of this vague, like, witches have more power, and then that seems to correlate with identity, but we don't have, like, any understanding of why, apart from, like, their creation myth. I would like to see where that goes in the second book, because I will say that, like, some of the exposition in this book was very, like, info-dumpy, and I'm hoping that that's because we got it from a source that's biased practically every time that we got it, and therefore later down the line things might not be all that they seem. But I did find it a bit strange that even Leonie's explanation to diaspora seemed to buy into one very, very particular version of a particular story, and then later on we got things like, I believe it was the native New Zealand witches who perceive of Gaia as, like, a non-binary entity. That was just sort of thrown in, and I was like, well, hang on, how is this mythology, like, actually developed and been passed down and been filtered through all these different cultural lenses and still ended up with this very, in theory, similar story, but at the same time, is it really similar, or are we just getting that, like, British perspective that even maybe Leonie has to some extent? So I'm curious. I'm willing to hang on there.
Yeah. I think she's quite good at setting up, like, sort of world perspective and then taking it down, which, again, for a first book in a series is quite good, because you're already getting hints of, like, this world building is sus. What's up here? I'm sensing some biases, maybe.
Exactly.
I have to shout out the audiobook. A, because it's the only way I've read this book before, because obviously I got it as an ARC, as an audiobook. But I am not somebody who has ever watched Bridgerton, so I didn't know who Nicola Coughlan was when I first listened to it.
Forget Bridgerton, Derry Girls, Morgan. I can't believe
I have watched
this.
a single episode of Derry Girls against my will.
It's so good, Morgan.
It's not fantasy, Soren. It's got no speculation in it.
You can't say that to an Irish person. I have very strong feelings about Derry Girl.
I just, humour that relies entirely on like awkward situations.
Yeah, there is a lot of secondhand embarrassment in Derry Girls. I will accept that.
The visceral reaction I have to it anytime it's on screen, no matter what the context.
Anyway, Bridgerton / Derry Girls segue.
But Nicola Coughlan is such a good audiobook narrator. Her accent work is incredible.
Mm.
Oh my god.
She does a beautiful job. And there is quite a lot of characters to contend with here. So, very impressive.
Yeah. Lots of sort of diverse English accents, which is always refreshing to see. And also the demonic voices that she does.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Deeply uncomfortable to listen to as you're walking around the middle of town.
I liked a lot of the magical build-up as well. I think there was a good escalation in terms of Theo's powers. We know Morgan loves an overpowered character on this podcast, so Theo's a great example of that.
I like my tropes. She's slaying.
She really is. Shall we talk about her transformations?
Yes. As listeners know, we have opinions about magical transformations and how they are not often handled well.
I liked it a lot. I think one of the things that made it really good was it was Theo's own agency. She already had this image of like the person that she is, and then she manifested that vision. It felt good from that point of view because it felt like I felt like a lot of the time, especially usually when written by a cis author, someone goes to some higher power and then is stowed a new body, and this new body is just like, maybe it's exactly what they imagined, but it's not like they got to choose.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Even if it's like, oh, this is exactly what he wanted, it's not like they did it themselves. And I feel like there is actually quite a big difference in that.
Yeah. And the fact that it was framed as this healing, and that it was very much a realistic culmination of like where we'd been heading the whole time. Comparing it to the other book that I have talked about on this show, Wrath Goddess Sing, which in that one, as soon as she got her magical transformation, it became a story about misogyny rather than a story about transphobia or transmisogony. Whereas this, like, you very much saw through Helena's point of view. The transphobia was still there, and like the fact that she was going in circles and circles and circles trying to still be transphobic.
Yeah.
Despite everything that had happened.
I think works beautifully as a metaphor, because at the end of the day, there is literally nothing you as a trans person can do to appease a transphobe. Even if you could magically change your body, they wouldn't care.
Yeah, the fact that she kept like mixing up the pronouns towards the end was like, oh yeah, the hypocrisy is just jumping so hard off the page.
That made me think about the whole we can always tell thing. Also, side note, but also relevant to Theo, I just really like that she kept her name, like the beginning of it anyway. Theodora is a very cute name.
Reference to Hill House as well. We love to see it.
There you go. That was in there for you specifically, Morgan.
Queer people. We love to see it. I can imagine like Holly and Theo staying up one night to watch Hill House together and just being absolutely terrified.
Their friendship was extremely cute.
It's so good.
They're buddies. And when Holly was like, I'm gonna run out in my bloody pajamas to go rescue Theo and I don't care. And I was like, have a good kid. Get in, we're going shopping. That was such a fun moment.
Yes.
Like the found family of it all.
Yes. But the sort of like the mirroring of like Elle and Neve and then Holly and Theo, and both their friendships as like women, but then also like the interaction between like the mother-daughter aspect was really nice to see. That focus. I feel like we're missing a lot of older characters in fantasy at the moment. It's always sort of like, I'm 21 years old and this should be a YA book, but I wanted to put sex in it, so it's not. Whereas this was like, they're in their mid-30s, they've got jobs, they've got kids, they've got lives.
They've gone through when they were the protagonists, when they had the war and they all lost their partners and all of that happened.
You know I love a good post-narrative exploration.
Absolutely.
And sort of exploring that mother-daughter relationship between all of because all of them, apart from Leonie, have kids.
Yes, but Leonie still has a plot about motherhood because she's considering becoming a mother, so I feel like it's relevant to everyone.
It's very much that kind of vibe, and sort of how different they explore that relationship, because they all have very different relationships with their kids. It was very refreshing to see. But they're all still women, and they go out on the town and they vibe and like. Although
we're saying friendships, I have to say I'm such a Neve Elle truther at this point.
Yes.
Like, Neva looks at
Please.
Elle and she's like, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, but I'm heterosexual. Anyway, whether I'm not heterosexual. And Elle's like, I feel like I was definitely reading Elle as ace. Now that I talk about it, I feel like she could also theoretically be a lesbian who has no idea that she's a lesbian.
Yeah.
But either way.
The non-man liking sensibilities were there.
She doesn't like men. Let's just say. Maybe romantically, but like, you know? Yeah. She was like, I can sleep with him and it's fine. Sometimes it's even good. It's like, oh.
Oh boy. Oh babe. Please. See a therapist. Go to a pride march. You'll feel better. I promise.
But, I just feel like it would be cute if they'd, done Holly and Theo as siblings, and that'd be so cute.
Come on, babe, you literally live in the lesbian capital of the UK. What are you doing?
I can't remember his name now, which is going to make it sound like I'm just straight up lying, but I did also like Neve's love interest.
Luke?
Luke. Yeah, that sounds right. Sure. I liked him. I felt like he was very, realistically a catch. Does that make sense? Like, for their age and stuff. Like, I like that that she was attracted to him because she was like, oh, he's like a responsible guy and a steady business owner and attractive. And it's not just like he's a millionaire and he has washboard abs. It was like, no, like he's just like, he has a nice beard and he's like a bigger guy and she's into that. And I was like, I don't know. It was just sweet. I was like, yeah, this just feels like a very real, like, the kind of person that she might become interested in, having moved on from that loss. Here's a soft place to land kind of thing. It was cute.
Yes.
Even though she was going about it in the worst way possible on every front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so messy, but...
It was messy.
I love them. I will say no spoilers, but his second book arc is very different to his first book arc.
Oh, interesting.
And, I don't hate it, but it's just a completely different story, so I don't know how I feel about it.
I was greatly enjoying the general irrelevance of men to the plot. Like, there were a few who were, a little relevant, but I just edited our episode on This Is How You Lose the Time War, and that was another one where, I mean, not women, necessarily, because gender is weird in the future, what can you say? But, she, hers, anyone, he, him, really just wasn't relevant.
She, herring all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Dawson did a really good job with doing that while also having this underlying thing that I would kind of already expect from someone in her position, where it's like, but men are also just people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like sometimes when you get to a full female cast, there's this other thing where it's like, but men are stupid and whatever, and then they all become very one note. And I'm like, no, they all feel like fleshed out characters. They're just not very important, which is quite refreshing.
Yeah, it felt like a reversal of what you usually see of there's one token woman and she's fleshed out a bit.
To be fair, is the one token woman usually fleshed out?
Fleshed out a bit. Yeah, but it was very unnoticeable, and then you're just like, oh, a man. Cool. Should we talk about the cover?
I like it a lot. I really love the neon pink and the neon blue on the shadow cabinet.
It stands out very much.
It really does.
You always know exactly where it is in the fantasy section.
And I always love woodcut art. And then I think that contrasted with the really modern colours is really, really fun.
Yes, it's giving very much government vibes, but then also witchy witch trial kind of vibes.
I do find it really funny that the acronym is just HMRC. I was waiting for someone to bring up in universe that if you say HMRC in public, people will just assume that you mean HMRC, and therefore won't. I'm not sure if Americans will know this, but HMRC is a real acronym for a real governmental department. So you could easily get away with talking about it, and people would just be like, oh, okay, they work for HMRC.
Of course, yeah. We've all seen it. I also have the Fairy Loot edition of the first book. Beautiful. Yes, it's the yellow pink reversal is so fun, and then on the spine, not on the spine, on the spread, you've got Latin, yellow and black, which is very fun.
You're our expert.
Okay.
Putting you on the spot.
Perdoke sed exhibe numquam audi magis caveque.
That's on the regular cover as well, on the banner.
Well, said is but, and numquam is nothing.
Okay.
Audi is I hear, and caveque, the first half of that is a word, but the second half means and. So, perdoke, I would assume perdis, as in lost lost but exhibited nothing. I hear magic and something else. What does it mean? Sorry.
I'm trying to find it.
Tell me.
I can't find
this
it.
Is embarrassing.
Someone's just going to have to tell us. I should specify that while we're on the subject of the cover, the American cover is quite different. It's much darker.
Oh.
It has sort of like two cupped hands that form an eye, of which Theo seems to be the pupil.
Oh, I have seen.
Which I like. I don't like it as much, I won't lie.
Okay, apparently Padoke means forgive me, so we're off to good stuff. Apparently, according to Google Translate, it means forgive but never show, listen more and be careful.
I feel like that's not right, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Juno Dawson, if you're listening to this.
I'm embarrassing myself with my 7 years of Latin that has just gone down the drain, apparently.
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. You weren't ready.
It's fine. It's fine. Who is your favourite character?
I didn't get to spend a lot of time with her, but I did like Leonie a lot. I'm hoping we get more of her in book 2, because it felt like she was sidelined a little bit.
Mm.
Just like she was off doing other stuff. Because I feel like they're setting her up with diaspora and stuff here, but she hasn't done that much with it yet. So I'm excited for that. Also, I think she's very interestingly flawed, so that's exciting. I did like Neve and Theo together a lot. Like, I'm a sucker for some found family, and they're just very cute. The shopping scene, that was cute. Just the little, like, scenes around the house where they're just making dinner together and doing the dishes. Little pockets of cozy fantasy in this otherwise very high-octane book. I enjoyed. How about you?
My favourite character in this book is probably Neve.
Oh, okay.
Especially with the way she interacts with other characters. I just love how ride or die she is. I love how sort of interesting she is. She has flaws. She's just like a very realistic character, which is quite fun to see as like kind of the protagonist of the book.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed her being more like down to earth. But unfortunately, my favourite character across this series is Kira. I think she's so interesting, and that's all I'll say. But you get so much time in her head in book 2, and it's so interesting.
I'm excited for the Kira content for sure. I liked her introductory chapter at the end. That was fun.
She's so unhinged. I love her.
I like Elle a lot as well, just because I feel like she's not the kind of character who's usually taken very seriously, if that makes sense. I don't want to say the words yummy mummy, but that kind of archetype is usually just like the butt of a joke. Where she's obviously treated very seriously by the narrative, because you're in her head, you know what she's going through and like. And it's interesting that she remains very likable. A lot of the characters remain very likable despite having a lot of flaws and a lot of internal biases, which I think is a big achievement. Yes.
Everybody levels up, I feel like, in book 2, which is fun. Like, it becomes a lot more high octane.
I mean, to be fair, this was pretty high octane towards the end. There were cars, but then there was...
This is more like consistently high octane.
Fair.
Yeah, end of this book is like, and now Avengers Endgame. Have fun.
Yeah, a little bit.
I love the use of the allergy to bees that comes in at the end.
Yes,
which is just like dropped in as like a little Chekhov's gun, which, like, you know, as Raven Cycle fans, we've been here before.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting.
We know all about the bee allergies.
It was cool to see that be used.
Yeah. Helena becoming unhinged was interesting, because in some ways I was like, oh, does she feel like a bit of a siphon now? Yes, but at the same time, I feel like it's so... I don't know how I would write a TERF if I was trying to get into their brain, because it is kind of just a cult mindset, and you do have to, like, focus so much on one tiny irrelevant thing. So is it that she doesn't feel reasonable and nuanced, and she should be more worried about Snow, and she should be more thinking about the long term, or is it just that this is actually just what they're like, quite frankly, and that they just get caught on something like a dog with a bone and will not let it go, to the exclusion of everything else? I kind of think it is that. It is kind of terrible being in her brain.
I think it was really well handled. Like, I do not envy Juno Dawson writing that.
Yeah.
But I think that she handled it incredibly well. And she had empathy for Helena as she was writing her, even though you can clearly see that Helena is the problem and that, like, all of this is because of her. There was still following that bias through in the internal narrative, which was very impressive to read, even as I was like, ugh, ugh.
I'd be very curious to speak with someone who has like a very neutral sort of like, oh yeah, I don't really know about trans people, but like, you know, I guess they can just do whatever and it doesn't affect me kind of stance on it. Like I would just be very interested, because I feel like I was wondering if at points, is this a bit didactic? But then I was also like, if you don't understand the nuances of this issue, maybe it is important to have these conversations on the page in black and white. I did a little bit of perusing of reviews, and obviously there's some people who vehemently hate it, but that's also not the opinion that I'm interested in, because that's people coming in with a preconceived bias. And I admit that I'm also coming in with a preconceived bias. Like, it's preaching to the crowd for me. Snow's really interesting from that point of view, because she comes in with like oh mum, I think we should use they, them, or maybe she, her, because like this is what Theo's been saying. And then at the end has done like a complete like 180 because her mum's died, which I'm very curious to see where her arc goes, because I feel like she has more potential for a redemption arc than Helena did. Like, Helena's out here trying to murder children, so at that point it's kind of over for her.
Yeah. I'm just going to murder a beloved pillar of the community on the off chance that she tells anybody about the future, because I know that I'm in the wrong, really, because otherwise I wouldn't have to do this.
When Neve immediately accuses her, and then everyone's like, Neve, how could you accuse her? And then Neve backs down on it as well, and she's like, oh god, I guess I was mad with rage. And you're like, Neve?
Neve. Come on, girl. Yeah, it was interesting on a reread getting to see the hints, because you know that she's going to die.
Yeah.
Getting to see her be like, oh yeah, you'll see me tomorrow. Like, I'll see you one last time kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And sort of, you can see the way that Annie is throughout the book very much maneuvering towards that as her final point.
Yeah, she's preparing herself for that. And then we get that line as well from Helena where she's like, is this why you always didn't like me? Because you knew it was coming to this.
Oofed.
Maybe just don't murder her then.
Yeah. It's actually not that hard.
I've never murdered anybody.
That's crazy. What?
I guess I have to give it 10 more years, because Helena's a bit older than us.
You never know.
I feel like people were a little bit more chill than they should have been about that, because the fact that the temperature was low in the summer, I would have been dusting the place for fingerprints. I would have been calling I don't know if they have magical cops. I don't want to call the cops in any situation, really, and HMRC are obviously corrupt, and Helena is the leader of them, so that's maybe not the best idea. But there has to be something, guys.
You're all war veterans. You know the signs.
The water was frozen as well, outside, in the summer. You're witches. Come on.
Come on, people.
There's been a murder. I've heard some people as well, when I was looking at reviews for this, complaining about the amount of references in this, but I was honestly having fun with them. They were like, there's too many Spice Girls references. It's aging the book. And I was like, look, I'm not really getting them either because I'm too young to get them. But I don't know. It felt like it cemented them in that age group to me in a way that I enjoyed.
There's a lot of pushback at the moment on like dating books. And I feel like I want my books to feel like they're of their time. Okay, there's something to be said for timeless books, but a book that exists specifically in its era, there is space for that. And you, as you said, like, it very much locked them into that age group, and it gave them a shared language.
Yeah.
That felt you could see the history there. You could see how they would have been as teenagers and growing up and together. And like, even when they were on different sides, when they were disparate, they still had that like common thing. And
that like sisterhood from childhood that they couldn't really shake even when they wanted to.
Exactly. You don't have to get the references in order for them to do their job.
And I also think that thing about some books are timeless, and that's one thing. But this book is so much a political commentary on a very present moment that I feel like it's fine. I hope that this book becomes completely irrelevant in like 10 years. And I think that there is a chance that it will. But I feel like it is very, very much talking about like the state of British politics right now. So it makes sense for it to be locked into this particular era, and also to be almost speaking directly to that particular generation, because they are that generation where it is their kids who are coming out, or their friends who are coming out later in life, and things like that. So it almost feels like it is speaking directly to them. So why would it not use their own language to do so?
Exactly.
What would you do if your mother told you that you were a witch and you were already like 17, 16? How old is Holly?
I thought she was like 14.
I don't know how old she is. I don't know ages. Probably more like 14. Theo was a very vague age as well, because they were like, this child looks like she could be younger than she is, or maybe she's not. And then I don't think we ever actually got like an actual age for her. So
I'd probably be pretty cool with it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my god, yay, finally, woo.
I'm the main character now. Yeah.
Yes.
Would you be able to keep it a secret though? This is the thing.
Not from you.
Oh.
We actually, let's be real, probably not from anybody. I talk way too much. If my mum wasn't the one telling me, I'd be like, Mum, you never guess what happened. Like, my mum is the first person to find out. And then I'd be like, Soren, you never guess what happened. I go next door to my flatmate and be like, oh my God, let me tell you.
I feel like I would be quite upset if my mum had not told my father for that period of time, though. I would be like, how can you not have told him? Like, your marriage is founded on a lie. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the marriage is founded on a lie more ways than one, so I guess it's fine. But, like...
I guess because Elle is specifically trying to repress that part of her life anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so much is going on in that family in regards to the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I did wonder if they had to keep phrasing it like that. I was like, this almost feels a bit homophobic, but then I was also like, maybe that's the point. So, I don't know. They're like, we just need to stress that it's anal that he's cheating with over and over again. And I'm like, guys, I don't think that's information that I needed. And also, it's weird to have this tone like it makes it worse than just cheating in general. Like,
gasp, the man has a kink. God.
You know,
this is the thing that puts him on the pyre.
Had him on the chopping block, not because he's breaking a promise of monogamy to his wife, who has an expectation of monogamy from him.
Yeah. Also, realistically, that mind wipe is not going to last long. She's a mind reader.
She'll find out again, probably quite fast. Especially it's a small town, everyone knows each other, so everyone seems to know about this. It is crazy to me that he has not told Elle. I'm like, how are you, like, twisting yourself into knots to be like, but she's happy and I don't want to ruin her happiness? It's like, girl, are you joking?
Maybe if Elle was single, they'd have to confront their feelings for each other. And she's like, I can't do that. I can't do it.
I think there's a grain of truth in that. That's all I'm saying. We've touched briefly on the fact that this is sort of like an after-the-war narrative and everyone has all of their post-traumatic stress to deal with and the repercussions. But I really enjoyed how that was very subtly woven in. Like, we don't actually get very many details about that conflict at all. And the things that we do get are very slowly dropped in.
It just sort of overshadows everything, which is quite... It's not nice, but it's quite well done.
And I think it's very interesting as sort of like a generational trauma narrative, because it is obviously now trickling down and affecting Holly, Theo, Snow. And are they actually going to confront it more? Because at the moment it feels like everyone just sort of doesn't talk about it. And just sort of carries on, even though literally 2 of them lost their partners in this conflict.
Who can say?
Who can say?
Who can say?
On a much brighter note, I do find it really funny that Neve was like recounting her relationship with her first partner and says that, like, when she initially disclosed the fact that she was a witch, he assumed that she was just like a Wiccan. And then was like, oh wait. Because that is what you would think, right? If someone was like, listen.
Yeah.
Is what I would think.
The female friendships and the vibes and the characters, it just all felt so fleshed out and refreshing from what you usually see in fantasy.
One review that I saw which drove me crazy was they were just like, all of these women are constantly at each other's throats. And I was like, not all of them. A lot of them are friends. A lot of them are very ride or die for each other. So that really surprised me. I was like, I feel like you just didn't pay attention. Like, some of them do hate each other, but I feel like they have reasons for it. It's not like, wow, I'm just going to write women into petty drama because that's what women do. Like, they're having genuine conflicts with one another. I was very confused by that.
Yeah, there was no girls versus girls drama, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and even, like, fine, they got a little, like, there was a couple of little moments where it was, like, there was, like, pettiness of some kind. Like, for example, the Moira, the Scottish witch, who Helena beat out for the head witch position, like, clearly didn't like Helena on a personal level because of the promotion, but it was like, that's believable, right? Like, of course, like, people do have petty grudges in real life regardless of gender. That is also a thing. If they were all only motivated by petty grudges, then I would be concerned. But I feel like often it's actually deep ideological conflict in this book, so... Also,
even the Moira-Helena thing was not very petty, considering, like, Helena is very much like a symbol of British
Tory
heteropatriarchy, richness, and then Moira's like a Scottish witch with many years under her belt.
Exactly.
Etc., etc. The complexity of British politics, which is different to American politics, despite what people say.
Also be super curious to have an American's point of view on this. Because I didn't read any reviews where people specified where they were from. Obviously, America is also gripped by transphobia right now, but I feel like its nature is extremely different.
Yes.
Not necessarily, no, it's not fundamentally different, but it's
far more based in a Christian base, I feel like. Whereas here it's about propriety.
Yeah, and it's about a pseudo-feminist agenda, which is not actually feminist at all.
And there were obvious parallels with a certain author.
I was thinking that. I was like, wow, this feels like a letter. I wonder if she sent her a copy. I was like, this is direct. This is speaking directly into her ear. A lot of the Harry Potter fans are complaining that they have nothing else to read. And you know what? You've all grown up by now, if you're a Harry Potter fan. I'm just kidding. I know that there are still children reading them, and that's fine. It is what it is. But I feel like if you want that, like, secret society element, and, like, magic, and, like, a lot of the things that Harry Potter actually executes on quite poorly, this does much better. The idea of, like, a magical community that has its own rules about purity and power, and then how does that ripple out and affect people who don't necessarily fit those parameters, like Leonie.
And it's got that gender-based magic system.
Gender-based magic system. I have to bring that back. I know, I understand using the witch versus warlock thing here, because obviously you don't want to use witch versus wizard because that's very associated with a certain property. And then you have to gender them because they have a gendered understanding of magic, at least in this particular culture. I am very curious to see if that's true elsewhere, because it sounds like it's maybe not going to be everywhere. But it is quite funny to be like, witch is female, warlock's male, in terms of the history of both of those words. Like, that's a very recent deviation. And in large point of fact, mostly because of Harry Potter. So, warlock is a cooler word, in my opinion.
Oh my god, yes.
I guess it's situational.
No, I think warlock sounds cooler.
It's got a better cadence, for sure.
Yeah.
Because witch is just like which one? You say it all the time, even if it's not in the right context. So it's like, but warlock. Yeah. Warlock sounds old. So I don't know what the root of it is.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So, Soren, as the new time reader, final thoughts?
I think I enjoyed myself. I'm glad that I ended up taking a few days to mull this over, because, listeners, I was too ill to record and we had to put it off a few days. Because I think the combination of being ill and this being quite a difficult read at points, because, like, Helena is horrible and she's saying, like, things about Theo's genitals and stuff, and then, again, the middle of the election, it's all too real at the moment. For some reason, trans rights are the issue of the UK, even though there's like 4 of us, and I'm just tired of it. So it was like a hard read in a lot of ways, but on reflection, and also it was a hard read in a lot of ways, and I wasn't sure if it was executing on what it wanted to execute on well, or if I was just like, yeah, I already agree with you, so sure. But in retrospect, I think yes, and I think that this is pretty well written, and the characters are very believable, as we said. They're complex. It's really refreshing to see older female characters taking the lead, doing things, being active protagonists, etc. The world building is very interesting, and I feel like this is a very promising setup for a series, so I had a good time. Or did I? I had a time. But I think it's a very good book. How about you, Morgan?
Yeah, I had a time that was difficult but enjoyable, I guess. Yes, it's a good book. It's a very good book.
Yeah.
It holds up on a reread. There's more you can get out on a reread as well, which sometimes you can't. So that was nice to see the little bits and pieces, especially as someone who's read the second book and can see sort of the chess pieces being placed.
I'm so curious about Leonie's brother. We didn't get enough of him. I know that man is coming back.
Yeah. Things that are important in book 2 don't seem like they'll be important in book 1, which is interesting. Like, the amount that Holly's brother is relevant to book 2.
Oh, wow.
Very surprising.
Damn. I don't remember his name. He plays football. That's what I remember.
I think it's Michael.
I can't be blamed for forgetting it if it's Michael.
Men.
That's your parents' fault for naming you Michael, really.
I have to say, naming your child Snow is so out of pocket.
That is what, especially because you're like, oh, I'm not a witch. Like, she's at normal school and stuff. Like, it's implied she has witch friends and stuff, but obviously she's usually with normal people, right? And her name is Snow. She has to go up to people and be like, my name is Snow. Damn. Maybe Snow will be non-binary in the end, because that is just such a non-binary name. Predeterminism, Helena. You shouldn't have named your child Snow if you didn't want them to be non-binary. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. Imagine Snow growing up as well when the Hunger Games were popular and people being like, oh, like President Snow. Sorry.
Oh boy.
Please continue.
Yes. Good book, good series. Excited for book 3. But where's book 3? She always ends them on a cliffhanger. And the cliffhanger at the end of book 2 is really big. Please, Juno. If people are looking for other books to read after this, do you have any recommendations for our listeners?
I have one non-book recommendation to start us off, just to keep things spicy. It is a podcast recommendation, and it is an actual play podcast, so who knows how many people this will appeal to. But it's called Quest Laid Plans. The first season is complete and works very well as a complete story, so it's a lovely little one to binge, and it is about an adventuring party who end up at their, like, adventuring school reunion 5 to 10 years later, I can't remember precisely, and then have to sort of get the band back together as threats re-emerge. But they're dealing with, you know, all of the past ramifications of not only the adventure that they led together, but everything that's happened to them in the time since. And they've done this really clever thing where the DM has had solo sessions with each player, and they've drawn tarot cards to determine what's been happening. So there's some really fun reveals, like someone's just changed genders, like, while they've been gone. Like, it's really fun. It's such a good show. The cast are amazing, and it's very underloved, so would highly, highly recommend Quest Laid Plans.
I don't know if this is a recommendation based on vibes or based on just because I read them all in the same block,
You know?
but a book we did on the show before. It's not gay. It's not trans, but The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, I feel, is quite quintessentially British, and I read it in the same period. I got it from NetGalley at the same time, so they're locked in my brain.
It's got some background gays.
It's got some background. This is true. I don't know what it is. It's, you know, it's witches.
It's the found family, for sure.
It's the found family.
And it's an institution that is actually secretly, like, a witch institution that's secretly a little bit white supremacist and secretly really not doing very well for witches of certain backgrounds.
This is true.
Yeah.
There we go. You've connected the dots for me.
If you read this and you went, I kind of just want, like, slice of life vibes with Theo and Neve the whole time, and I kind of want them to just mainly be having a good time with less drama, then I feel like that's a Very Secret Society of Regular Witches. And if you want the romance to work out,
if you want a really good Irish accent in the audiobook.
What can I say? Irish accents, they just get people. I say as if I have an Irish accent, which I very much don't.
You'd be too unstoppable if you had an Irish accent.
Thank you.
God had to nerf you.
I'm going to come in and confuse everyone with a non-fiction recommendation, actually.
Cool.
And say that if you are interested in the very particular state of British politics as with regard to the transgender community, the Transgender issue by Shon Faye is really, really good. You can, like, read it in a day, so it's not too much suffering, because it is not a super uplifting read, but I think it's very clear-eyed. I was kind of expecting to learn nothing from it. I learned quite a lot from it. It's short, it's snappy, it's concise, it's well-researched, it's well-written. The audiobook is also really, really good if you prefer to consume non-fiction that way. So, would highly, highly recommend.
I feel like I always just go, yeah, if you like trans femme stories, then Charlie Jane Anders is good. But I feel like I've got to widen my recommendations a little bit. Oh, and then my brain's like, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is a good one if you hate the British crime system, police system, you know, and British politics. I feel like that's a pretty big one. And big British
Do
media.
I just recommend Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Davis, or is that getting too... I'm trying to think of, like, female friendship witchy books.
Should read the Witch comics or watch the Witch TV show.
Quite genuinely, I agree with you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because that is female friendships, but, like, a bit younger. They are a little bit more petty and a little bit more, like, not like other girls, but they get over it. It's all about them. They conflict realistically, I feel like.
I agree.
And they grow together as a team. Underrated.
So, to close out Witch Winter and also the year, we are finally going to be reading the second volume of Hooky. This will be like a full year after the first episode came out, pretty much, like, to the day, I think. But we really enjoyed Volume 1, and yet somehow neither of us have gotten around to reading Volume 2 yet, so we thought, why not do it together on the show? That is the webcomic-turned-graphic novel series Hooky by Myriam Bonastre-Tour, and that episode will be coming out on December the 2nd.
Until then, you're always welcome to the bookcase.
Don't forget to scratch the cat on your way out. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Bookcase, a production of Plain Art Prod. On this episode, you heard Morgan Greensmith and Soren Brywood discussing Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, with additional editing by Kit Lovett. You can find Juno Dawson on Instagram at Juno Dawson, or visit her website at junodawson.com. You can find The Hidden Bookcase on Twitter at Hidden Bookcase, and on Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and TikTok at Hidden Bookcase Podcast. Find out more about Plain Art Prod at plainartprod.com. Know what we should read next, or want to chat to us about what you thought of this episode's read? You can reach us at thehiddenbookcase@gmail.com, send us a DM on social media, or come chat with your fellow bookworms in our growing Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Want to support The Hidden Bookcase? Support us on Patreon for bonus episodes, audio outtakes, playlists, and other extras. Buy a book through our bookshop.org page, or consider leaving us a rating or review, or telling a friend how to find us. Your whispers are the best way for bookworms to discover our show. For our next episode, which will be out on December 2nd, we'll be reading Volume 2 of Puppy by Miriam Banastre Turd. We hope to see you then, and in the meantime, you're always welcome through the bookcase.